Welcome to the Hornets Hivecast, the official podcast of your Charlotte Hornets. Here's your host, Sam Farber.
Welcome to another edition of the Hornets Hivecast, your daily podcast with all the notes, quotes, and daily buzz around your favorite NBA team, the Charlotte Hornets. I'm Sam Farber, and it is a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us once again, a game day edition of the HHC. Hornets visiting the Brooklyn Nets, game 2 of this 6-game road trip and night 1 of a back-to-back. Give you a preview of the game. Also going to look at my favorite topic to complain about, the NBA rookie ladder. LaMelo Ball did not move. He's still 6th. All my complaints from about a week ago had no impact at all, but I'm going to continue to lodge them. And we're 7 weeks away from the end of the regular season. Hornets currently sitting in the top 5 in the Eastern Conference. Can they stay there? We're going to talk about all these topics with our good friend. You hear him pre-games on the Hornets radio network as well as post-games, and you hear him middays on our flagship station, WFNZ. He's Kyle Bailey, back with us, and for the first time on the HHC as a father. Kyle, congratulations on fatherhood, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. It is, as you well know, the joy of my life. Best job ever, exhausting, coolest thing I've ever done, but it's good to be back, and it's great to be back in a rhythm and working with you and watching this basketball team continue to, I guess, surpass expectations, win ball games, and have a lot of fun doing it.
Well, surpassing expectations, I think, is the right way to put it, because back at the start of the season, most experts pegged this team to be somewhere around 24, 25 wins in this 72-game season. The percentage odds of making the playoffs, according to 538, at the start of the season was around 6 to 8%. Now it's a 67% chance to make the top 8, according to 538. We know from talking to Mitch Kupchak at the start of the season and just hearing him throughout that while this team might be ahead of schedule, the goal for this year was to make the playoffs. And I feel like with good reason, there's started to be a little bit of hedging in terms of what the expectations are in terms of where they should finish at the end of the season. But with 7 weeks left to go, what are your expectations right now? Should the Hornets move the goalposts on themselves from just make the playoffs to make a certain position in the rankings?
No, I don't think we need to have that conversation, although I do think you want to aim high, right? They tell us that in elementary school, aim high. And I think this team is still aiming high, even without LaMelo Ball. So my expectation is that this team makes the playoffs. And I do think that it's very reasonable to believe that they could end up as a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. I think finishing top 4 that's where they are as of today. And they could, but I think that's going to be very difficult. You had some teams around them in the Eastern Conference standings that got better at the trade deadline. And we'll see what the Hornets can do in terms of both staying healthy and figuring out a way to adjust to life without LaMelo Ball. So far, so good, but we're only 5 games in. So I think the expectation should still be that this team is playing postseason basketball, and I'll just enjoy the rest after that. I've got my hopes, I think, pretty high for this team and just what they can do the rest of the way, but I'm really looking forward to the next season and the season after that. So they're playing with house money right now.
There is a clear top 3 in the Eastern Conference with Milwaukee, Brooklyn, who the Hornets are going to see tonight, and the Philadelphia 76ers. And then in this middle pack, which currently the Hornets lead, there's these 3 very confusing teams in Indiana, Miami, and Chicago that seem loaded on paper. They seem to have the kind of rosters that should do well, but they have not risen in the standings, and the Hornets, to their credit, have been the ones to take advantage. Last I checked, NBA's BPI, the ESPN statistical analysis, projected the Hornets to finish 6th in the Eastern Conference. 538 put them in a tie for 7th for final record, but said that there was, again, a 2 out of 3 chance that they would make the top 8. So I think the statistical models still foresee some losses. And when you look at the schedule, you understand there's a lot of toss-up games. I even thought the Wizards game was not a gimme for the Hornets, even though they've been playing better than Washington. The Wizards had not been playing so poorly that you'd assume that they were a home dog. But this schedule is still challenging for the Hornets ahead. But most of the stat models put them in a playoff position come regular season's end.
Well, that's where they should be. All due respect to some of those teams around them that I do. You've alluded to, I've talked about as well. The Heat, the Pacers, the Bulls, the Celtics. These teams have a lot of talent, and that talent can turn on, flip a switch at any moment, and those teams could make a run, win 8 of 11 or 9 of 12 and go on a tear. So, a lot of things can happen. And Hornets fans here in Charlotte especially that have been around for a long time, the OG Hornets fans that I call them, that have been here since day one in 1988. This group knows that things can always go wrong. But, right now you don't get that feeling with this team because the word that James Borrego has used so often to describe this team this year is resilient. And they have been and shown resiliency in so many games this season. But I think they've shown resiliency in the face of things like LaMelo Ball's injury and so many of the things they've dealt with so far throughout this season. To be 4 of 5, to win 4 of 5 after LaMelo Ball went down, and to do it like they did last time out, beating the Wizards without Malik Monk, who missed his second straight game. And on a night that P.J. Washington only scored 5 points. This team is tough. They're mentally tough. They're well coached. And so, yes, and it makes all the sense in the world that when you factor all of it in, this team should be expected to make the NBA playoffs in the Eastern Conference.
We'll talk about LaMelo a little bit more in the next segment, but just giving credit to this entire roster and Mitch Kupchak and his team that have put it together. James Borrego deserves a ton of credit for the coaching job he's done, but you look at this roster and you have so many, almost all, homegrown products or guys who came into the organization and took on different roles from their previous stop. And the potential is there for this core to really take some big steps. Making the playoffs this year would be one, but this team is essentially has the opportunity to stay intact moving forward. There are certainly decisions to be made on some guys who are at the end of their current contracts, but they would be under team control still. So Mitch Kupchak has the opportunity to bring back who he wants. And again, this foundation really seems to be taking off in the direction that I'm sure Mitch had envisioned at the start, but there's never any assurances in this business.
Well, no, and the one thing that I know about Mitch Kupchak in the time that he's been here, and I'm sure you figured it out pretty quickly, is that he's a straight shooter. He doesn't share much. He keeps things close to the vest. He's not the source of leaks around the NBA trade deadline. He's very fervent in his belief that he can still evaluate talent, that this team can win, and that they can do it in the not-too-distant future. He's also been very careful to choose his words when talking about the expectations of this team, to your point, that they didn't want to really talk about playoffs when the season began. They wanted to talk about development and getting better, understanding the rigors and the challenges of the COVID season. And so they've been, I think, very smart to set expectations kind of low, that under-promise, over-deliver type of mantra, and that's what they've done this year. And so you're right, life in the NBA is such that you don't really expect teams to stay together for too long. But this team has great chemistry, and they like each other. You're right, they're young. You've got some guys toward the end of contracts that they need to either get resolved or decide to move on from. But the core of this team has the opportunity to stay together for the next couple of years, and I think that positions them really well to be a perennial Eastern Conference contender once they really get rolling.
Hornets 2 games above 500. They're in that top 6 mix in the Eastern Conference, and doing so without their rookie, LaMelo Ball, who, of course, went down, about 10 days ago now. Hornets presumptively had the Rookie of the Year, but since the injury, that question has certainly come up as to whether or not he played enough games. And at least for the folks who make the NBA.com rookie ladder, the answer was no, because for the second straight week, LaMelo Ball is number 6. He's number 6 on it's ridiculous, number 6 on the rookie ladder. So it's time for my weekly rant. Kyle will be forced to listen to me when we return here on the Hornets Hivecast.
Hornets fans, be sure to download the Hornets app on your mobile device. The Hornets app is your access to all new features and exclusive content, including the new game day experience for every game this season.
Kyle Bailey of WFNZ, our flagship station on the Hornets radio network, and you can hear him pregame and postgame on WFNZ. Kyle, it's time for my weekly rant about the NBA rookie ladder. LaMelo Ball was spectacular in the 41 games he was able to play consecutively, I might add, out of the gates, eventually taking over starting point guard duties, and just an absolutely phenomenal rookie season. But sadly cut short, at least for the moment, due to a right wrist fracture. There has been at least the door cracked open slightly that he could return during the regular season, and the debate has already begun as to whether or not LaMelo Ball could win Rookie of the Year. Now, the reason it's a debate is because he would have played the fewest number of games percentage-wise for his team of any Rookie of the Year winner ever. He's close. He can kind of see where Patrick Ewing ended up when he won the award with the Knicks back in the 80s, but he is still in uncharted waters. What is your stance on this? Has LaMelo played enough to be eligible for Rookie of the Year?
Look, here's the deal. This is a very unique situation, and he has clearly been, when on the floor this season, the best rookie in the NBA. You made the point that he and Tyrese Halliburton have played essentially the same number of games, maybe the exact same number of games. If 10, 15, 20 games from now, Tyrese Halliburton's numbers are clearly better than LaMelo Ball's, than 5. But, I talk to a lot of people around the league like you do. I ask them these questions, this question about LaMelo still winning the Rookie of the Year. Patrick Ewing did it in the 85-86 season, having played just about 60% of the Knicks game. So there's some precedent here. I don't love it. I think we'll have to let it play out. But there's no one that knows basketball with functional eyeballs who's watched this season who believes that there's a better rookie in the NBA this year than LaMelo Ball.
I don't think there's any question about it. And I appreciate what you had to say there, Kyle, because I do think if you're doing the ladder based off of a projection, well, then why is LaMelo on the list at all? 6th doesn't make any sense to me. If we're saying, well, I don't think he was good enough to win the award, then put him in 2nd. Put him permanently in 2nd and say, listen, LaMelo Ball would win this award if he had played enough games, but right now we don't think he's going to be able to, so we're going to put him 2nd. 6th, I think they're doing it to aggravate me personally at this point. But if you're looking at on a per-game level, there's no question. LaMelo Ball is head and shoulders above everyone else. Maybe you can make an argument for Anthony Edwards because he is at least the scoring leader amongst rookies, but impact for winning, it's not even close. And in this latest rookie ladder, Tyrese Halliburton of Sacramento, who's had that team's, I think, won 5 in a row, 7 of 8. They've been fantastic lately. They and he moved up into the top spot, taking over for Anthony Edwards. And again, as you mentioned, Ball and Halliburton, at the time that the move was made on the rookie ladder, had played the exact same number of games, and the stats aren't even close. They even had the gall to put impact on winning in the description on why Halliburton moved up, and I'm thinking, are you nuts? The Kings are still buried in the Western Conference. LaMelo Ball's impact on winning is clear as crystal, as the Hornets are in a playoff spot.
Sam, I'm angry on your behalf now. I'm convinced they're doing this to torture you, and it needs to stop. It doesn't make any logical sense. I'm right there with you, buddy.
The last part of it for me, there's all kinds of deep stats we can go into, deep dives. Let's just keep it simple. Points, rebounds, assists. Amongst rookies, Anthony Edwards is the top scorer, and he'll continue to pull away because he's given the green light to take about 30 shots a game for Minnesota, because why not? They're the worst team in the league right now record-wise. But in terms of total points scored, LaMelo Ball is still about 100 points above Tyrese Halliburton and is 2nd amongst all rookies. In rebounds, LaMelo Ball is 3rd. Halliburton is about 100 rebounds back. He's 11th. In terms of assists, Ball and Halliburton are 1 and 2. Ball is about 50 assists more. It just, the gross tonnage of distance between LaMelo Ball and everyone else through 41 games was insurmountable. Again, if you're going to give it to Anthony Edwards because he's the better scorer, okay, we can make it a scoring award. It wouldn't be the first time the Rookie of the Year was handed out that way. But if you're not giving it to Edwards, I don't understand how at this present time Tyrese Halliburton should be at the head of that ladder and LaMelo Ball should be in 6th.
No. Look, and I go back and forth on this because the Rookie of the Year award is very much an individual award. But, I mean, there is a lot of team and organizational and fan pride that comes with that. LaMelo is a guy that the NBA has been chomping at the bit to market and really just got their first taste of marketing LaMelo Ball. And, of course, he gets hurt. He's on the shelf at least for the rest of the regular season. So, this is an opportunity for them, to really embrace him. And I'm not just talking about handing him the award undeservedly. If Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton continue to take off and win the award justified, then fine. I talked to Cornbread Maxwell, I think, a week or two ago. Cornbread's very much of that old school NBA, respect the 80s, the 90s, the guys that, are oftentimes overlooked in some of the present day conversations. And when I asked him if he had a problem with LaMelo still winning the Rookie of the Year award, I halfway expected him to say yes. But he said, no, absolutely not. He said, this kid has been clearly the best rookie in the NBA this year. Looks like a superstar. No, of course he could still win the NBA Rookie of the Year award, and of course he can. Again, if you want to make this some kind of award where, like the MVP, it's the best player on the best team and not always the most valuable, you're talking about redefining these awards. This happens in so many sports, and it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, but I guess it does, because listen to how fired up we are, Sam. We want him to win this award because people take pride in those sorts of things, and he deserves to win Rookie of the Year in the NBA.
At least based based off what we've seen so far. One last one for you on this vein, on this topic. From my previous work, I covered a lot of college football, so I had a Heisman vote, or I have had an Heisman. I guess I still have one. I'll have to figure out for next season if I still get to keep it, since I'll obviously be covering far less college football than I had been, but that's for me for another day. But for the here and now, one topic I heard a lot this year was that the Heisman would mean less if Trevor Lawrence's name were not attached to it. Now, in full disclosure, I did not vote Trevor Lawrence number one on my ballot. I went with the winner, the wide receiver out of Alabama. But I understand the argument because Trevor Lawrence is such a spectacular player, but in each individual season, I didn't think he had earned it. The other guy had had a better season. Do you feel that the Heisman Trophy has been more besmirched with Trevor Lawrence having not won it, or if LaMelo Ball doesn't end up Rookie of the Year, that the Rookie of the Year award would have more of a dark cloud over it?
Goodness gracious. That's a great question. Trevor Lawrence is the clear best prospect in the NFL draft because he is the best quarterback in college football. Is he the most valuable? That's tough. Had he played that night in South Bend against Notre Dame, would they have won the game? I can't say yes, but I can't say no because he has an impact on every game he's in. So that's a great one, but I would still lean LaMelo because, again, unless Halliburton or Edwards put up the kind of numbers that are just indisputable, can't be argued with, clear-cut Rookie of the Year. Even if they win the award based on the statistics that they compiled this season, there will still be no one in the NBA universe who thinks that there's a better, rookie in the NBA this year or a better player in that class than LaMelo Ball. He is the class of the class of 2021. And it's already, I can't say it's been decided because they're so young and so many things could happen the rest of the way. But, I mean, again, Sam, you've been around the sport a long time. LaMelo Ball is talked about differently. He put himself in a class with some of the all-time greats at 19 years old, the starts they got off to in their careers. That's not a coincidence. That's who he is. He's electrifying. The league knows it. Fans know it. And, again, he's the best rookie in the NBA. I hope he wins the award, but if he's at 6th today, I don't know what the outlook should be for over the next 7 weeks.
We at least know that voter's not looking at him. Yeah, I think, Devontae Smith, what he did at Alabama was worthy of the award. And, yeah, if Trevor Lawrence had not caught COVID and who had been able to play the entire stretch of games, votes might have been different for a lot of people. But I guess it's a similar set of circumstances in the sense that this is something totally out of LaMelo's control. He got hurt, and that's unfortunate. It opens the door for the Devontae Smith of this rookie class to step forward and claim the spot, and there's nothing LaMelo can do about it. And I don't think he's rooting against any of these guys, but based off their trajectory right now, for me, if I had a vote, I would say Anthony Edwards is the only one capable of passing him right now because statistically speaking, he's the only one putting that kind of points on those kinds of points on the board to make it possible. But we shall see. I'm sure I will have another rant next week as I continue to be disappointed in the rookie ladder. But we got to move on because it's a game day and the Hornets are taking on the Brooklyn Nets, and the rest of the roster that is there has got a star-studded one they've got to tackle. We'll get the thoughts of Kyle Bailey on tonight's matchup when we return here on the Hornets Hivecast.
Buzz City, it's time to return to the Hive. There are a limited number of socially distanced tickets available for each game. Fans can expect enhanced cleaning and disinfection procedures and an upgraded ventilation system at Spectrum Center because the health and safety of the team, staff, and guests is the top priority at the Hive. Be there at Spectrum Center for a Sunday matinee April 11th when the Hornets host Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks at 1 p.m. Tickets on sale now at Hornets.com.
Sam Farber and Kyle Bailey from WFNZ here with you on the HHC. Kyle, it's a game day. You're going to have the pregame show later on this evening when the Hornets take on the Brooklyn Nets. Very different team from the one we saw last year in Brooklyn, and also a very different team from the one we saw Game 3 of the regular season. Kevin Durant has been out, sidelined for the last 19 games now, I believe, 19 or 20. Hamstring injury. He's had a tough time staying on the floor, but they're saving him for the games that count the most when they come to the playoffs. They've had a rash of signings. It's an all-star riddled roster. It feels like they've got like 25 guys, and they just pick 15 a night to put on the bench. But what are your thoughts heading into this matchup with Brooklyn?
Well, I assume since this is a family podcast, we won't be discussing Kevin Durant and Michael Rappaport, their lack of rapport. But this Brooklyn Nets team has a whole lot going on right now. I mean, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, we saw those two earlier this season when the Hornets beat that team and did so on a night where both of those guys had big nights. And, of course, they became a vastly different team shortly thereafter with the James Harden trade. And now with what they've done, adding Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, adding some veteran playoff experience. And this is a team built to win a championship. And I'm among those who think that this is the best roster in the Eastern Conference. So this is a contest that I don't think many people at all will give a chance, or give the Hornets a chance to win tonight. But there's something about this team, the Charlotte Hornets team. They seem to rise to the occasion, and this is a big challenge for them. Nationally televised game. The whole country is going to be watching. I'm excited for this, Sam. I really am. I like their chances to compete, but, boy, I tell you what, do you think that this is the best roster in the Eastern Conference?
I think it's the best one in the NBA, quite frankly. I think if they're healthy, a big three like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and James Harden no one's got three superstars like that on the same roster right now. Plus, you've got really good core guys. Take Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge out, who are both former All-Stars and spectacular players. But a guy like Joe Harris, the way he can shoot, Landry Shamet when he's healthy, the way he can shoot, DeAndre Jordan, his rebounding ability. They've got a lot of good pieces on this Brooklyn team. Their problem is, Steve Nash has said recently that he hasn't liked the sharpness of this team, but does appreciate the fact that they find ways to win. I don't blame them for not being sharp. They don't have the same guys out there night in, night out. It's hard to build a rhythm. But with all that said, they continue to put W's on the board.
Well, they do. Steve Nash said that this team is in a funk, I believe, yesterday, and he's right. That's kind of where they are, but you're right. It's been a revolving door of faces, and not in a bad way necessarily. They're adding talent. It's just talent takes time to gel, and we'll see if this particular collection of talent gels in a championship way. I'm with you. I think this is the best overall roster in the NBA. And, without Kevin Durant, they've not been the same team. But James Harden, I know for some people he's not a player that they flock to the television to see, right? I mean, his style of play is not for everyone, but the guy is one of the most masterful offensive individual players that we've seen in league history. And when you add that to guys with championship pedigree and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, as combustible as that situation may seem, it's not just formidable. When they're clicking, it's unbeatable, I believe. Now, this is our first, time around the track with this team, so we'll see what it looks like come the postseason. But, Sam, I don't think we've seen much like this. I mean, even with some of the super teams we've seen assembled in the last 10 to 15 years, we haven't seen much like this.
No, we haven't. And, again, it's not just the big three. It's the all-stars they've added in behind them as well. But, again, we have to see what they look like together. And I think that's where the biggest advantage for this Hornets team lies, is that the chemistry the Hornets have is the envy of the NBA. And Brooklyn, watching them play, they still play a lot of individual basketball, and for good reason. If I had to play a one-on-one game, my first three picks are probably sitting on the Brooklyn roster. They're just that good. But the fact that they're not playing as much of a normal team system, certainly not the same way the Hornets do, I think there's an advantage to Charlotte like that, because Charlotte makes you defend every player on the team. It's not just Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward, even though those are the two top scorers. Anyone on the floor seems capable of hurting you any given night. And defensively, they're getting better. I don't want to say they are a better team without LaMelo Ball. They certainly are not. But they have been forced to focus a bit more on defense without his ability to stretch the floor. And, the proof is in the results. They've had 3 out of the last 4 games or 4 out of the last 5 games where they've held an opponent under 105. That's pretty tough to do in today's NBA.
Well, it is. And this defensive effort, we were talking about it the other day, saying, is it sustainable? And for all the love that LaMelo Ball gets, and he deserves all of it, defensively, he's not a finished product, not even close to it. The defensive numbers, the defensive ratings numbers point to a guy who's a rookie in the NBA and, oftentimes can maybe get a little bit lost or, tangled up when trying to defend some of the more complex offenses in the NBA. So I only say that to say, with this team now as currently assembled, those guys who've been around a little bit longer, I don't think it should be a shock to anyone that they're playing better team defense, slightly better team defense. So, this is a slightly different Hornets team, as we all know. The pace has been a little bit slower, and the half-court offense has been a little bit more prominent. Been some things that we knew would likely be adjusted. but they've adjusted well. Can they continue to adjust as more and more opponents are watching the film and seeing the way they're playing without LaMelo? I like what they're doing defensively a lot. It starts with Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier, their leadership, the more selfless guys like Cody Martin, Caleb Martin, the guys that get out there and are sacrificing themselves defensively, taking charges. Miles Bridges is always in that mix. So this is a team that, I said this earlier today, we often talk about how great teams are a reflection of their head coach. And I think it's time we start saying that more about James Borrego, because this team is a reflection of JB, and the players have been telling us that for a while.
No doubt about it. Last but not least on this game here tonight, it is a nationally televised one on TNT. I felt like the first big game of the year against Brooklyn, where Terry Rozier put Kevin Durant on the poster, it was kind of an eye-opening moment for a lot of us here locally that, hey, the Hornets can and will be playing competitive basketball against some of the elites in the NBA with that performance. But it's been, for the most part, kind of a hidden secret. And LaMelo Ball was spectacular on highlights. But again, there were not a lot of nationally televised game outside of the matchup with his brother Lonzo against the Pelicans, where we could really see that battle and this team start to emerge on the national stage. Now they don't have LaMelo. They're taking on a national powerhouse, and they're doing so with a top 5 record in the Eastern Conference. If they win this, what message do you think it sends to the national audience about this Hornets team, where the assumption right now might be, well, they lost LaMelo, so we're going to stop paying that much attention to the box scores. If they get this W over the Brooklyn Nets, what changes?
Well, I don't know that much changes internally, as I'm sure you're probably in agreement with. I mean, this is who they are and who they intend to be moving forward. And if that includes a win tonight, well, that's just kind of what they expect. They know how good Brooklyn is. They know they're not favored in this game. They know they're expected to lose because Brooklyn is expecting to win an NBA championship, and the Hornets aren't there yet. But if the Hornets at 24-22 tonight get a win on national television over what is perceived to be the best team in the NBA, I think it is affirmation that, this is more than just the arrival of LaMelo Ball. And this conversation, as I'm sure it does with you, oftentimes kind of irritates me, because it's almost as if you're pitting two sides against one another, when it's really about the fact that LaMelo Ball's insertion into this organization with the arrival of Gordon Hayward, plugged 2 very dynamic, different players into what was an already in process construction of Mitch Kupchak's vision. And it's not a complete vision yet, but here we are 21 months removed from Kemba Walker leaving the organization. And I can say, I think honestly, at the time, it didn't feel like there was a discernible plan. And less than 2 years later, this team is 4th in the Eastern Conference with a chance tonight to beat the best team in the NBA. And while it might be a long shot to some, we know this team is up for the challenge. So this to me is affirmation that JB and Mitch Kupchak know what they're doing. And, we're seeing the early results of a process and a building process that is pretty competent when it's all said and done.
Tip time is 7:30 p.m. tonight. We invite you to tune into the pregame show. Kyle Bailey and Travis T-Bone Hancock will have it for you starting at 6:30 on our flagship station, WFNZ. And you can hear him middays today as well. So get your full fix of Kyle Bailey today. And appreciate you, as always, Kyle, coming here on the Hornets Hivecast. And once more, congratulations to you and your wife on becoming parents.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Always enjoy talking with you, and looking forward to tonight.
We are as well. Thanks again to Kyle, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. A reminder, we'll have our post-game podcast available for you tomorrow, breaking down this one and getting you ready for night 2 of the back-to-back, because the Hornets will be quickly on their way to Indiana to take on the Pacers. So we'll have a little 2-for there for you, preview against the Pacers and the postscript from the game against the Nets. Till then, for Kyle Bailey, I'm Sam Farber, saying it's been a pleasure and a privilege having you with us on this edition of the Hornets Hivecast. And in the words of LaMelo Ball,
thank y'all. Have a good day. Wear your mask.
Thanks for listening to the Hornets Hivecast. For more coverage, visit Hornets.com.